Hey YouTube, I'm going to be putting on the A Lite 280 fan kit today. I have a 1997 crew cab full-size 7.4 liter Chevy, and you know I've already done all the stuff that you would normally do to the truck to try to deal with the cooling problems. I went ahead and I put in a oversized aluminum radiator. I put in a high flow water pump, and you know, it does fine, except I live in the desert, and at about 100-degree heat, stop and go traffic, anytime I'm stopped for a long time with the AC on, it still starts to get hot. I also started recently pulling a camper with it, and again, most time fine, but if I'm pulling in a big you know, mountain range, long grades, I'm having some trouble. So I went ahead and modified my fan shroud some. You know, when I was looking at it, I just didn't like the way the fan shroud, how close it was to the fan. I wanted to see if it could pull more. You can see here I built the shroud on the front, and then I did some work on the bottom. You can't really see it, but you know, even then, I mean, it did help some. Probably dropped it about you know, 5 degrees, but it would still start to climb, get heat soaked. So now it's time to put the bigger electric fans on. I hear this works pretty good. We'll see how it goes. So the first thing you got to do when you're putting this kit in, you'll see here you have this upper radiator shroud. You're gonna get rid of the upper radiator shroud, then you're gonna take the fan off. You're gonna take off the lower radiator shroud. To take off the lower radiator shroud, you're gonna have to get under here. I think it's easiest just to drop that skid plate and then go up in there and take it. They're all 10mm bolts. So I'll go ahead and knock that off now, and then we'll see where we go from there. When you're taking this off, you can see already you have 1, 2, 3 bolts there. Then you're going to have 2 down in here on the passenger side, and 2 down in here on the driver's side. And then you have 2 more at the very bottom that you have to go in underneath through the skid plate to get off. On the fan, 4 1/2-inch nuts on there. Just get in. It's not. Mine broke off pretty easy. They're pretty tight. I've been in there before, but I just take one hand to hold the pulley and or the belt, and then just get a long 1/2-inch in there and break them off. All 4 of them pretty easy, and then the fan will pop right out. And then I already undid the bottom 2 bolts there, located about here and here, and also these 4 here. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then your bottom radiator shroud will come out. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is put the nuts back on the pulley here to make sure it stays secured and in place. I had to go find some washers to put behind these nuts here. It just makes me feel a little better as I put them back on. A little better, you know, I get to hunt through the 27,000 washers I've saved over the years to find 4 that are the right size that fit, but luckily I had them. I gotta make a run to the hardware store. Okay, got those all tightened up. You know, that's nice too, because if I do have to just move the truck, I don't think I'm going to be able to do the whole job in the time that I have this afternoon. I can move it, no problem, just short distances. It's going to be fine. Yeah, you know, one of the things I didn't mention is that this was originally a 5.7 truck, and I got to tell you, a 1-ton four-wheel drive with a 5.7 was terrible. So I actually had put a Whipple supercharger on it to see if that helped. Still not enough. Then I caught the thing on fire. Once I did that, I said, heck with that. I'm going to small fire. It's just right down there. I said, you know, I'm going to go ahead and just swap in the big block. And let me tell you, for anybody that's thinking of doing that, man, what an easy swap. I mean, it's the easiest engine swap I've ever done. You know, motor just dropped right in. Motor mounts were the same. They just bolted in a different location. For the fuel injection, even though this is port versus the other Spider on the 5.7, I just cut the harness and wired each injector in on this one. Didn't even have to reprogram the computer. It actually fired up with a 5.7 programming, but then I sent the box off to Black Bear Performance and they reprogrammed it, got it tuned for the 7.4. And boy, I couldn't be happier with the swap. If you're considering doing something like that, I highly recommend it. It made a huge difference in the truck, and now I got a truck that pulls and will get out its way and I can pull a camper with and everything else. Okay, next I'm going to start test fitting the fans and everything and see how that goes. The fans, basically they sit right down in here, and then they provide an upper bracket for you. They actually provide, in the kit it's pretty nice, they provide I think 3 different brackets depending on which radiator you have, and if you have the tall or the short one, and then the width. And then they provide some side brackets, and I don't know how those are going to go, out to see. So here's the fan unit that they supply. It's a nice unit. You know, what's interesting to me though, it looks like they supply one that's one step up from this, has the curved blade fans. It's a universal though, so it won't have all these mounting locations, I don't think, looking at the pictures. But it's interesting because this one's supposed to pull 5,500 CFM, and the bigger one they sell, the universal with the curved blades, does 6,000. I wish they would have put that in for this kit, but you know, most people say it's okay. Say it cools great that I've seen so far, so we'll see how it goes. Here's the parts that you're going to need to install it. This is one of the 3. You can see this one for the 454 with the taller radiator has a lip in it and step up here. That'll help you, you know, it clears the radiator there, because the radiator sticks up taller than the 5.7, at least 5.7 I had. So that's good. Then here's the wiring / control module that they provide right here. Here's the fuse block, various electrical connectors and stuff they provide. Pretty good. I really like, you see this little, I'll show it to you later, but this little piece here, they have to tap into your fuses. That's a pretty cool little thing. You know, the one thing, and here's the brackets on the bottom. You know, the one thing that's a bummer is I bought this off of Amazon Warehouse. I got a nice discount on it, but yeah, of course, being Amazon Warehouse, you know, I really has been hit and miss with them. I've got some really great deals from them, and this one looks to me like it's missing 2 things. The other guys that I saw install it, they had a, you know, bundle of wires that came with it. The wiring, that's not a big deal. I got plenty of wire. But it also looks like it also should be a bag of hardware, nuts and bolts and stuff to use. That's not here either. I don't know if it was Amazon's fault or when it got here the box was destroyed with a hole in the side, so they could have fallen out. Either one, yay. So I get to go figure that out. I just checked though, and it looks like the same, I think they come with new ones, but it looks like the same 10 millimeter little bolt here that I have that was used in the factory setup for the shroud. It looks like it'll actually thread in and be just fine. So I'm going to try to reuse the factory stuff and see how far I get. Something else that's worth mentioning, I think it's a little weird. You know, the instructions recommend that you actually drill holes and mount this thing like around right there in the middle. And then you run these 2 center wires, this purple and this yellow wire. You drill another set of holes and run the 2 wires somewhere in here. And then back here, I suggest you drill a hole right here on the side, run all these wires through together, tie them together and then tie them into those two wires. I don't know if I'm going to do that yet, so I might. I don't. I've seen a couple pictures of some finished installs, and all the wiring looks sort of cruddy. So I have to see if I decide to put it somewhere else. Okay, splash shield removed. They say that you need to take the bracket and mount them to the two factory locations. So I'll get up here like this. Okay. You're going to take the bracket, you put in the factory location, then you're going to mark on the fan shroud where you want your hole. And they say drill that, mark it and drill it, and then reinstall everything. I think I'm going to put a nice little nut zert in there, so it's a little better than just drilling a hole in it. And then I'll get this thing fan mounted up, start on the electric. So I have the areas marked where I'm going to drill some holes. They said in the kit they supply some nuts and bolts to attach those little brackets. As I said though, I didn't get any of that hardware because I think it was lost in shipping. So I'm going to make my own, but I'm going to use this these little nut certs here. I don't know if y'all have ever used them. I just got this from Harbor Freight. It's a tool here. Last week I used it on a camper repair and instead of rivets, and man, I really liked it. So I'm going to use these nut certs here. You just basically go and drill a hole so the nut cert will slide in, trying to make it as snug as possible. You thread it onto here, almost like a rivet, and then after you thread the hole and rivet, you go ahead and just squeeze it in there, and it squeezes it up into that hole and holds it on, and then you got a nice little nut cert in there to thread these bolts on. So I'm going to do that. Well, that took some doing, but last time I used those things last week, I was just putting in a little thin aluminum sheets. Man, they were a lot easier to do. This stuff is thick. You can see the thickness on it, but yeah, at least bigger than 1/8 inch, and man, I had to go at it a couple times, but I finally got them in there nice and secure. I really like them. Make the installation real easy. Okay, so I think you guys see I got those lower brackets installed in place. Really didn't like how far the factory bolts protruded down in there, so I found some others in the stash to get them to fit a little shorter. I think that's better. And the fan will just come in and sit right down on top of the brackets. I'll get them mounted to the nut zerts. Hopefully everything lines up, and then we're good. Let's move forward. I'll show you one thing I'm thinking about doing. I really don't like the look of the aluminum in here with the openness of the, I mean, some people probably like it a lot, right? I don't know if I like it. So the thing I'm thinking about doing, I'm just putting the old fan shroud out here. I'm thinking of just coming in and maybe cutting it right here across top and over. So then I'd have more of a factory look to the front of this. I'll just lay it on top, bolt it in. Then I'll also have the factory location for this wire loom here to stick in place. We'll see how that goes, but I think I'm probably going to do that. Okay, so I went ahead and cut down my factory fan shroud. I know some of you are probably cringing right now because those big block fan shrouds can be sort of hard to find, but oh well. At least last time I looked, I didn't make them aftermarket. They make the small block, not the big block though. But I actually like the look a lot better. So I'm definitely leaving it. I like the fact that I can put my factory harness back in here and tuck it in, and all looks good. So I'm going to keep it that way for sure. So the other thing I'm going to do, again, I talked at the beginning of the video, you know, they want you to mount that. If you can see, they want you to mount that thing right there, and it's just in the way and it's ugly and I don't like it. So what I'm going to do, because I have my factory shroud top there, I'll take this thing and I'll hide it up in here. I'm going to tuck all the wiring in there and run it under the shroud and then outside to the battery over here. Okay. And to the temp pickup over there, everything will be tucked under there. I think it'll look a lot better. So that's what I'm going to do. So here's what I did the shroud to get this to fit. So it just would barely not fit in there. So I just took a grinder just to this part here, just to this lip here. I didn't want to get rid of either because you can see with just taking fraction, maybe a 32nd off each one, that thing is going to fit right in there and just sit real tight right in there like that. It's going to fit perfect. Here's what I did. I got these all located. On this center bolt here, I made it larger than so it can just stick through. I did that because I used the center one to locate the overall mount, get everything sort of snugged down, and I can just put this top cover on, snug these two down with it. Everything's tight. I got the location, everything snugged up in there. You can see how the wires are going to be. It's going to be nice and tight up in there once I get everything around. You can barely even be able to see it. So that's real nice. I'm going to knock this off here. Continue to try to drop that thing. So, the little control module there. Hopefully I won't knock it off. So what I think I'm going to do, I got it marked here. This is the approximate location of the wires. Not exactly going to work because I'm in the center of this fan shroud and there's a divider. So I think I'm going to do is make a little hole right to probably this side, maybe this side. That'd be easier, less stress on the wires on this side here. I'm going to punch through the aluminum, drill a hole, run the wires down in here, and then tie all the wires inside the fan shroud. On the side in there, the purple and the yellow that have to run in there, and that'd be good. It's coming along nicely, but this is exactly why they said installation time is about 2 hours. This is why I'm a pro at turning a 2-hour project into like a 6-hour project, maybe more. So I always decide to modify it, but that'd be good when I'm done. Okay, quick check where we're at. I got everything installed now. All the wires are run. Let's see, I ran my, let me show you how this works over here. So I ran the 12 volt ignition down, tied it into the, let's see, down here, tied into the wire loom, and then come up in here, and I tagged into this ignition on fuse here. You can see, tied into the wire. Then, so you can see which one it is. So then this other wire is for, this other one I have run to it is running to the back. It just wasn't comfortable running it right over the top and out. I didn't ever want to get in the belt, so I ran it over and around the back. Now they say to tie it into the wire here. You can tie it, it's pretty neat, tie it into the positive or the negative wire of your clutch. But then I was watching a video from a guy who put a kit on, and he said I was reading the comments of one, and he said he didn't like that because then the fan turns on and off each time with the clutch. And he said, I want the fan to run all the time if I have my AC on. So he said he tied into the pressure switch, which I'm guessing I could tie in here, right? That might be it. Or I could tie into the switch back there. So I'm going to play around and see which one is on. Give me a 12 volt signal or a negative signal, probably a 12 volt signal all the time with the AC on. It won't turn on and off with the clutch. And then I'll probably tie into that wire there. But you can get a general sense of what it would look like if you were to just leave it without the factory shroud on there. And that's sort of why I didn't like it. I didn't want this tied in, this box here just tied in the front and all the wires running. Sort of ugly. So I'll check back in once I got it buttoned up. All right, one last flyover before I put the top on and buttoned up. You know, one thing I did, which is just a lot nicer, they don't come with it, is just put wire loom on all the wires. This is about where your wires would run anyway. So running over to the driver's side, you're going to have a ignition on 12-volt wire. You're going to have the temperature wire that they have, the probe that goes right in there in the corner of the radiator. And then you're going to have a wire that runs back to get a signal off your AC to turn on. You know, I couldn't find the signal wire that the one comment I had mentioned and talked about to tie in that gives me a 12-volt all the time. So, and you can run a negative or a negative signal or a positive signal on the system, which is nice, but I still couldn't find anything that would work. So if somebody wants to add in the comments where I'd find that wire, great. I know there's one inside on the dash on the AC HVAC control unit, but I don't want to pull that thing apart right now, only because I've had my dash apart like 4 times recently for different things. The ignition switch went out and had a radio problem and blah blah blah, so I'm not pulling that thing apart again. So it's just the way it is. So I have it tied in on the right here. You can see I have it tied in on the positive 12-volt going to the clutch. It does cycle as the clutch cycles, but oh well, that's okay, not too bad. Otherwise it's pretty nice. You know, you can see how it would look again if you had the aluminum cover on there. The only difference is this control module, as I said, will be mounted up here in front. A little cleaner. I did run, you know, I ran 8-gauge positive and negative wires over here to the fuse that ties in and to the negative side of the battery. My jury on that is still out. I got to tell you, I've never, well, I only tried it once, but the last time I tried to run dual fans off of a single power feed, even through a giant fuse, I melted it down. So I ended up having to run 2 relays. We'll see how this system manages it running the way it is. And one positive through about 8-gauge into this. If it gets hot or I start having problems, I'll run just wiring some dual relays off of it. And that leads me to what would I rate this system. I'll be back with that in a moment and show you the final installation. Okay, so here's everything buttoned up. It's nice with a little cover I made on the front there. You can't see anything. It's a nice clean install. Unless you're really looking for it, you won't even see it's there, which is fine. I like the way everything sits in there. Tuck that up in there. It looks pretty good. So, you know, I'm going to only give this system right now, I don't know, 3 out of 5 stars. And why is that? Well, you know, it seems to pull plenty of air. I haven't used it much yet, so you know, if I have problems, I'll come back and update with the issues I had. But most people say it cools pretty well, the couple that I've seen on it. But here's what I didn't like about it. So I did not like the fact that I had to make my own holes on the bottom, and the fact that you're supposed to put, you know, nuts and bolts on it to hold those lower supports I showed you. I'd really like them just to, you know, I don't know why they can't put the same kind of nut inserts that you can see right there, you know, they have on the sides for a side mount. You don't use them in this application, but you know, the other thing I didn't like is yeah, I just don't like the fan shroud or the support that they come with. The shroud's fine, actually. Shroud's nice heavy duty, but the support, it could have been better. I didn't like the fact that everything didn't exactly line up. I don't remember if I said this yet, but I had to enlarge each one of these holes here in the support itself to get everything to line up with the factory holes. So had to drill that. I think the last thing, and again, if all of that, I didn't have to mess with all of that, plus the last thing I would have really liked was for them to just include a harness that you could just plug in and plug into your factory harness somewhere. Like, it'd be nice if they included a little pigtail that you could just plug into this right off the top and run its own wire, so you didn't have to piggyback into the wire there. Also another, I don't know, maybe plug into the, the ignition on power. And then I think one last thing I would like to give it a 5 is, at least so far, my experience with these kind of little temperature reading things you can see in there that I was talking about, the one that it comes with. I don't know if you can see it in there. The one that goes to the fins. I haven't had all that much success with. I would rather it come, and I had run an auxiliary fan up there. I'd wired it in on a relay. But anyway, that was the other thing. I don't like this setup. I think they should set it up with a relay for each fan, and then have you wire it up with a battery and a signal switch to separate relays, because I think it's going to get too hot. We'll see. And then the last thing is, I would just like, I like this factory temp switch here, this factory location, and I would much prefer that they at least give you the option to run that style temp switch. So I'm going to go out and see if I can find a 2-wire temp switch that'll fit that, and then get rid of the one that plugs into the fin over here, that's pushed to the fin and ties right into my water pump down there. So then I'll just have more confidence in the signal I'm getting. Overall though, I mean, fits real nice, got plenty of room. I'll do one more update after I drive it a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so here's my final review of the A Lite dual fan setup I put on the truck here. I've driven it now for probably about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. Took the truck on a camping trip, pulled a camper up in the mountains, probably 6,000 pounds, something like that. And overall I gotta say it did really good. I'm gonna raise my rating from 3 to 4 stars. I do feel a little bit more power, a little bit more. I got about a mile per gallon better pulling the trailer, so that was nice. I gotta say that the truck is quieter for sure in city driving. Don't hear the fan nearly as much, and these fans are real quiet even when they're on. And I think lastly, my temperature is staying more consistent. Going around town with the AC on, we've had a number of 98, 99 degree days here lately, and it's been pretty good. So that's all the good. That's where I'm raising it to a 4. The downside, like I said, still, I would have liked the, I would have liked the wiring harness, pigtails to be included. Would have liked the bracketing, lower bracketing be a little better, and the holes being pre-drilled in the fan, that kind of stuff. That's not a big deal. Only thing I wish is that it would have, pulling that camper, it was still better than the stock fan and shroud for sure, but it did get a little hotter than I like. Got up to about 200 and maybe 215. So I was hoping to keep it down 210 or below, preferably down around 205. And it still did get a little hot, but as soon as I stopped, fans kept running, it cooled it down, not a big deal. So I think that's about it. Summary, I definitely recommend this kit for anybody thinking of getting one. Overall, installation wasn't that bad, and it does what it says it's supposed to do. All right, have a good one. Enjoy. Oh, and one final addendum. As I said, the truck did get a little hotter than I liked when I was pulling the camper, and I was wondering if I could put the S-blade fans that are in a similar kit. Gives you about 500 CFM more flow. So I ordered those S-blade fans in, found them online for a good price. I tried. Those fans do not fit the motors that come with this. So even though the universal kit that has those fans on it looks exactly the same as this one, the fan motor shafts are different. So if you're thinking of trying that, don't. Those fans won't fit. You ought to just go ahead and buy that S-blade universal kit and then try to make it fit your application if you need that extra 500 CFM of flow. All right, thanks. Later.